Takeaway Choice moment. We kick things off with one of the best football days of the year, the one that combines Thanksgiving food and football. And today, pretty good football. The Cowboys hosting the Colt McCoys. That would be Washington. It's a battle for supremacy in the NFC East. Dallas looking to make it 3 wins in a row as they push for a playoff spot at 5-5. Coach, a very much discussed game all week. Now that it is here, what is the key to this matchup?
Well, going back and looking at the first game, Dallas has got to be kicking themselves when they look back at what they did. Ezekiel Elliott had 15 carries, barely ran the ball. They threw the ball a ton. They had the turnover on the 5-yard line late in the fourth quarter. Then they're able to come back and score, get the ball back, drive down. They're about to kick a field goal. They jump off sides. The kicker hits the crossbar. It should have gone into overtime, and they really should have won. So I think we're going to see a healthy dose of Zeke this game. That part of the equation is going to change. And to me,
they figured out who they are now.
Yeah, and then it's hopefully, hopefully it doesn't get into a situation where if they get down, they transition back to, the pass first mentality. It's going to be interesting to see how Washington handles this. I expect them to give Dallas a bunch of screens, wide receiver screens, things to slow down that pass rush. They've got to run the ball consistently, whether they're gaining yards, significant yards or not, to protect Colt and give him a chance to be successful.
I'm going to go on the other side as far as the Cowboys, what I believe they're going to have to try to do. Typically, people know that, oh, man, they're going to hand it to Zeke, so they have to be able to throw the ball and be effective. I have concerns on 2 different levels. Number one, from a personal standpoint, Michael Gallup, a guy who made one of the big plays in Atlanta last week, late in the ballgame, he runs a deep comeback. Dak makes a great throw. They're able to convert a first down to be able to ultimately get in the field goal range. He had a personal tragedy. His brother committed suicide. He left the team, didn't go back to Dallas, left the team for a period of time after the Atlanta game because he's from that area of the country. So now with his overall development, I'm still concerned about Amari Cooper. I'm still waiting for that breakout game. I'm waiting for him to be able to be the deep threat, not the intermediate, not the short, but ultimately he's got to be able to live up to that first-round trade and for them to be at their absolute best. Tight ends haven't been a threat, so how do they get these 4 or 5 big chunk plays that I need out of that passing game, Nick? That's what I'm concerned about. They're going to win, and if they're going to be able to make it easier for Dak, that has to be able to happen on the outside. So that's what I'll be watching as this game plays
unfolds.
on.
This is the one spot where I disagree with you as far as the passing game goes. I think what you're describing is absolutely what they will need to do to have any chance to win next week against New Orleans. When you're playing a Washington team that's down 2.5 offensive linemen, that's on a backup quarterback, that since they've lost their offensive linemen have scored 14, 16, and 21 points. When you're a Dallas team that since the beginning of 2016 is 21-2, when Dak doesn't turn the ball over, and Zeke is coming off his best 2 games of the year, I don't know if this is a game that I'm so concerned with showing that getting Amari Cooper involved because of the potential downside to it. I think this is a game that Dallas, if they play it straightforward, if they play it as conservative as the Jags played that Steelers game, if they just say we're going to hand the ball off and play great defense, and if we don't make a mistake, we are going to win, that's the game plan I would have. Now, maybe that's too conservative. I'm not typically conservative in football or in nature, but that would be my game plan against Colt McCoy, against a team that doesn't have any offensive line, and against a team that's been struggling to score points.
And it's going to be interesting to see what their opinion is of Colt McCoy. Are they going to be willing to play it close to the vest and keep this game close, or are they going to try to do what Chris is talking about and get the ball down the field a little bit and see whether Colt can play from behind? And I know you mentioned it earlier in the show. Colt's last meaningful game was against the Cowboys in 2014, and he tore him up. I imagine he'll play better than expected, but they're going to have to protect him against his pass rush with a lot of screens and a lot of wide receiver screens.
Can we specifically talk about something you sort of glossed over a little bit, which is getting Amari Cooper back into the fold and into the mix with this team? It hasn't happened in the last couple weeks, and I wonder wonder if that's more on him or more on the offense isn't being designed to incorporate him more.
Yeah, I'm just not going to allow people to continue to blame Dallas coaches for everything. Dallas, they do have talented players. But at some point in your career, you have to start being responsible for the coaching and for the information. And I believe that Dallas, I believe their wide receiver coach is a good coach. And I believe that they're trying. But a lot with Amari, at some point, you have to get better. And getting better means you have to start responding to the coaching, responding to them putting you in positions to be able to make plays. And you have to be able to make plays on Sundays, on Thursdays. So for me, at this point in Amari's career, I understand. I'm surprised that he's not a better wide receiver. He was one of the most talented and one of the most well-rounded wide receivers coming out of college football. He was one of the guys that was always trying to get better, not a diva, always there early, always staying late, always trying to get that edge as a wide receiver. I'm just wondering, at some point, is he trying to do too much in trying to be too creative in running his routes compared to just being robotic like Larry Fitzgerald? If I need to run a dig, I can take 7 steps, 2 to the post, and flatten it off and not try to add a lot of flavor. When I watch this individual, I think he's trying too hard to be too creative on some of the basic routes.
And look, I know Sanjay Lal personally. That's the wide receiver coach for the Cowboys. He's smart, he's detailed, he's demanding, he's very good at what he does. And Chris brings up a really interesting point, because whenever you trade for someone or you give someone a big contract in free agency or whatever, however they come, but with high expectations, the player oftentimes pushes, and the team can push too, and that can have a tremendous negative effect on what you're trying to get done. You brought him here for a reason, to be who he is. And the quicker he can be who he is and fit into that scheme, I think you're going to see that production increase, as opposed to trying to push him the ball or him pushing to do things that are outside of what's being asked.
See, what part of the country is Amari Cooper from?
South Florida.
South Florida.
Miami.
And I understand he suffered an injury in high school, but there are Florida schools that wanted him to come play football for them.
Yeah, he could have gone anywhere.
Could have gone anywhere he wanted. Where did he choose to go to school?
Alabama. Because he knew it was the best. He knew it was the toughest. But he wanted to play at the biggest stage. He didn't want any shortcuts to being great.
This is what is, because I know you've known Amari for a long time. This is what is so confusing about this player's specific arc, is he's always been a guy who has taken the hardest route. He's always been known as an incredibly hard worker. He hasn't suffered a traumatic injury. He was amazing at Alabama, and he was instantly great in the NFL. To now be going on 2 years of mediocre to subpar production, I can't figure that out. And you're, of course, right on that. He's got to take some ownership for it. But it would make sense. It's like, oh, he got a big contract, stop trying. Oh, he's always been a guy whose effort waxes and wanes. None of that's been the case. And now it's multiple systems, multiple coaches. It's only 3 games in Dallas. But yeah, you do need at some point for him to be the guy that he was in college and his first 2 years in the pros.
But sometimes, Nick, the coaching point is try less. Sometimes it's try less and relax. And just by taking a step back and a breath, that's what puts you over the edge.
Yes.
Dallas host like me?
Yeah, like you do.
There's many ways I put you all over the edge. Thank you very much.
There you go.
Much more First Things First right after this.